Hello, hello. How's everyone doing? I have had a wonderful day. Mm. Played a bit of Minecraft with some of the people from the server. Very nice. Alright, so today we will be doing a couple of exercises. We'll be doing the rest of the homework. So since first we need to warm up with previous exercises we've done. So we'll do the 2 pages of superimposed lines. Then afterwards, we will do the ghosted lines and the ghosted planes exercise. And then we will see how long has elapsed. After that, we might do another page if there's a lot of time, or we might just hop over to the free drawing. So let me just get a pencil. I mean a pen, sorry. One sec. There we go. Oh. So, everyone remembers how to do the superimposed lines? If not, the instructions are here. I'll send it in chat. So I suppose we'll just be doing 2 simple filled pages of that. Oh, thanks, handsome. We'll be doing 2 filled pages. And then we'll be hopping over to the next exercise. So I'll set a timer for 10 minutes, I think. And then after that, we'll hop over to the next exercise. Depending on how fast everyone is. Remember to draw the initial lines with a ruler, so you have a straight line to guide you. I'll be using my trusted apple container method again. I do really enjoy drawing with you. It's really, really nice. Makes it so much more enjoyable when you're sharing with other people and you're just sitting alone, grinding away every day. Got my first page ready. Some of you were talking about that you were moving your torso as you draw. Hey D-Shock, we are gonna start out with doing the exercise we did yesterday, the 2 pages of superimposed lines. I've set a timer for 10 minutes, and then we'll see how far we get with that. Some of you were saying that you start moving your torso as you're drawing. You gotta remember to draw from the shoulder, not your waist, not your elbow. The majority of movement should be coming from the shoulder region, which will give much straighter lines and a lot more control and fluidity in your lines as well. Once again, remember to look at where your pen is going, not on the pen itself. And remember not to tense up your shoulder, because that'll make it very uncomfortable. Got a really good one there. Hey Ogre K, you have not missed anything. We are simply doing the superimposed line drawing that we were doing yesterday. Then after that we'll be doing a couple more exercises from the lessons. It'll be a very easy and chill day today. I hope you all have something nice to drink. Always helps with keeping a calm mood. One thing that I've noticed through meditation is if I sit and drink a cup of tea while meditating, take a sip every now and then, it makes the experience so much more enjoyable. Because as you sip down a gulp, notice how your entire body just kind of relaxes and your mind calms down. Then you just sit with that. Very easy. That's the whole technique. Now you've learned how to meditate, so you can do it 20 minutes every morning if you want to. It will do great for both your focus, concentration, the way you speak to yourself. It'll help you in pretty much every way if you make that 20-minute habit in the morning. Thrilma likes mint tea. Mint tea is very good. Personally, I prefer fennel. I really enjoy the aftertaste fennel has. It kind of lingers in your mouth with this really distinct, almost salt licorice taste. But of course, mint and fennel, they're not actually tea. They're herbs. Tea is a plant. There's only 3 types of teas, I believe. There's black, green, and white. Everything else you see in the store is herbal teas, which are not technically teas, I believe. Alright, got my first page done. Don't worry if you're a bit slow. The timer is, that's why I set a timer. I think I'll... Mm, Pokey says their lines are not as good as yesterday's. Don't know about you guys. Well, I notice my vertical lines are a bit shoddy, I suppose, but I did get a few good ones. This one here turned out really good. Remember to relax your shoulder. Sun ID points out that later on, Comfy says that you shouldn't concentrate on getting the line straight in all different angles, but just a few angles, and rotate the page for others. Do you mean that you just have the straight lines and then every time you draw a new line, you're rotating the paper? So you try different like that? Alright. That's actually a really good point. So every time you start on a new line, rotate the paper a little bit. If you already did 2 pages, just go ahead and do another page. It's a reward, not a punishment. Alright, my 10-minute timer ticked off, so if you're not done, don't worry. We'll hop on to the next exercise now. Juno says, in terms of what direction you draw a line, no reason in learning all different directions. You should just learn the one that is most comfortable, and then rotate the paper so you can always use it every time. Alright, that's a good point. So you're just drawing the same line, same angle every time, and as you're drawing, you just rotate the paper instead. I suppose that's another way of doing it. Whichever method you choose to use, I suppose it's up to you. Personally, I'd like to be able to draw every kind of directional line rather than just rotating the paper, because drawing digitally, I think it makes it a bit easier. Just my opinion. Sharak asked what kind of keyboard this is. This is a custom-made keyboard. I believe the company is called Ergodox. I'm not sponsored, but it's pretty expensive, but well worth it because my carpal tunnel pretty much disappeared in a week since I switched to the mouse and this keyboard. Alright, so let's hop over to Crispy Weed and get the instructions for the ghosting line.
Ghosted lines, homework. Video instructions. Ghosting lines is a technique I first learned from Scott Robertson, specifically from this DVD from years ago. and it's really become, at least on a conceptual level, the backbone of how I want my students to think. As you should now be
Oh, sorry, the volume is too low? Alright.
familiar with years ago.
Let me just,
Robertson, specifically from this DVD from years ago. And it's really become, at least on a conceptual level, the backbone of how I want my students to think. As you should now be familiar with the concept of executing your marks with confidence, the ghosting method helps us to break the mark-making process into a series of steps that allow us to draw with that same confidence, while also improving the accuracy of our own results. It also forces us to think and consider our intentions before each and every mark we put down. Since this technique is all about taking the process of mark making and breaking it down into 3 distinct steps, let's look at each one in turn. Step 1. Planning. The first step when making a mark is not to jump in and put ink on the page. Beginners will often do this, and for obvious reasons, that impatience leads to poor results. Instead, we ask ourselves, what kind of mark do we want to make? If it's a stroke that is meant to start and end at particular locations, identify them. Even go so far as to mark them down with little points. Identify the path you want the mark you want to follow. But beyond that, think about the task that mark is meant to accomplish. Ask yourself what this mark is meant to contribute to your drawing, whether another mark might already be doing that job, and ultimately, what you can do to make the mark to the best of your ability. Rushing in without thinking is probably the most common mistake people make, and it leads to marks that contribute nothing, repeated strokes, and just more chaos on the page. Remember, above all, in this course, we are not sketching. We are drawing purposefully and building things up one step at a time. Rotating the page. Another important part of the planning phase is rotating your page. You will find that executing marks in some directions are easier, and other directions are more difficult. That is perfectly normal. For now, I want you to rotate the page to ensure that you're always drawing in the orientations that are more comfortable for you.
Alright.
A better use of your time. Some may ask, but then how will I learn how to make marks in every direction for situations where I can't rotate the page? This is something you'll learn automatically over time, and it is also something you can focus on yourself later. For now, however, if you sit here trying to grind away on this particular issue, you will only hold yourself back from moving ahead onto learning more important and useful skills and concepts. Step 2. Preparation. Now, when we move on to the next phase, everything involving planning is now over. Think of this like a production line, where every phase is handled by a completely different version of you. Now that we have our marching orders, we set out to familiarise ourselves with the specific motion and movements our body will need to perform to make the given mark. Make sure you're sitting with a good posture, that you're able to engage your whole arm and start ghosting through the mark you want to make. Ghosting. Ghosting is the act of going through the motion of drawing a mark, but without actually touching the page. You bring your pen to the first point, then move the pen to the end point with a smooth, confident motion, holding the pen a little above the surface of the page. Then you lift your pen up again, bring it back to the start and repeat the process. This will help convey to your arm the orders you determined in the planning step, and will develop some short-term muscle memory. As you practice the use of this technique more and more, over days, weeks, months, etc., you'll find what number of times you should repeat this motion. The focus is ultimately on getting comfortable and familiar. What these words really mean for you will come from experience. Step 3. Execution. When one hits the last of the 3 stages, students are usually full of anxiety. We've gone through all the planning, the preparation, And now it's the time to actually go through the only step that produces a result. And it's that anxiety that causes us to mess up. Instead, we once again have to go back to the production line mentality. The one executing the mark is not the one who planned, nor the one who prepared. They're a new version of ourselves who was given simple instructions and only needs to worry about one thing: executing the mark with confidence. No hesitation, no second guessing, no attempting to avoid a mistake. If you make the mark confidently but mess up on accuracy, then you didn't mess up. It's one of the earlier people up the production line that messed up. Your job is to make a single smooth stroke. The second your pen touches the page, you need to accept that any opportunity to avoid a mistake has passed, and all you can do is commit to the motion and push through. That's all there is to it. The purpose of this exercise. This exercise is intended to introduce you to a technique that you will be using on every single mark you make through all of the Drawbox lessons, and hopefully beyond. The goal is to, over time, develop a habit of thinking before you draw, to consider what purpose the mark you're about to make serves, and whether or not it is the best mark for that purpose, or if another existing one is already accomplishing the same task. And of course, to ensure that you are as prepared as you need to be to make that mark, rather than rushing in half-cocked. The level...
Alright, we'll watch the movie first here. So essentially what she's saying is, before you make a stroke, know what the stroke is gonna do, then as you're drawing it, don't use your brain. Here we are. Loki says, that's a really good exercise because I usually make a stroke first and then wonder how it will work with the rest of my drawing. Yeah. And Sharak says, this sounds like 1,000 kicks practiced once versus 1 kick practiced 1,000 times. That's a really good analogy. This is how the real pros train.
Since the ghosting technique is going to be used for every single mark you draw throughout this course, one thing I want to make clear is that I do not by any means expect you to be able to employ this technique perfectly right from the get-go. Every exercise in this lesson is all about introducing you to concepts and making sure that you understand them. Being able to apply them is going to take a lot more practice and mileage. There are a lot of little mistakes that students make in this exercise, and they are entirely normal and expected, and they will go away with practice. So I'd like to break this exercise down into 3 levels of challenges, where we don't even concern ourselves with the challenges of higher levels until we've gotten comfortable tackling those of the lower ones.
Oh, sorry, did I miss a video? Oh, you're right, there was a video first. Sorry, let's watch this one first then.
I'm assuming at this point that you've read through the lines section of Lesson 1 and watched the videos, and that you've completed the assigned pages of the superimposed lines exercise. In the superimposed lines instructions, I introduced the idea that drawing confidently is the key to achieving a smooth, fluid, consistent trajectory to your lines, which speaks to how we can follow the principles of mark making described in the lesson. In this exercise, I'm going to introduce you to a technique that will, as a concept, drive how you make marks throughout this entire course. It's called the ghosting method. This is a technique that I first learned from old DVDs by Scott Robertson, a name you may recognize as he's well known for his How to Draw textbook, which I find to be extremely useful as a resource to have in regards to technical perspective. This ghosting technique of his is something that over the years I've come to appreciate as the bedrock of not only good mark making, but how we should approach most things in our lives. Most beginners will often approach mark making in one step: execution. They bundle figuring out what mark they want to make and how they want to approach drawing it by actually making it into one task that their brain handles all at once. This is pretty inefficient when you think about it, anytime you try to do multiple things at once, you're probably going to do a worse job at all the given tasks than if you did them one at a time. So what I mean by this is that they will decide, okay, I want to draw a rectangle. So they will draw their mark. They know that they want kind of a straight mark here, and then they're just drawing it carefully because they want it to be straight.
You're doing it too slow, Comfy.
And there you go. And they're being slow and steady because they know that the more time you put into something, the better it will come out. But that isn't quite as simple as it sounds. Because here, they've put lots of time into these lines, but they're wobbly. And they're wobbly because they're being slow and careful. That doesn't mean that rushing is the key. It simply means that there's a better way to approach this. Ultimately, that's what the ghosting method is all about. It's about breaking the process of making a mark into 3 distinct phases. First, planning. Identifying the specific nature of the mark that you want to draw, what its job is, and how it's meant to contribute to a drawing. If it's a straight line, we can place tiny points where we want the mark to start and where we want it to end. Here, we can also rotate the page to find a comfortable angle of approach. Don't just leave your page in a single position. Move it around, turn it as much as is needed. There will be plenty of orientations where drawing marks will be more difficult. For example, I'm right-handed, so drawing like this is considerably more difficult than drawing like this. And so I want to make sure that my line that I'm going to be drawing is in a more comfortable position for me to execute it. While eventually this is something you'll want to work on to make those various orientations more comfortable, now is not the time. Right now, we're just going to focus on being able to execute a mark in a limited range of orientations really well. And that'll be enough to get us into learning more important things sooner. If we spend all our time just grinding away on being able to draw lines in every orientation, it'll be wonderful that you'll be able to say that, oh, I can draw a line in every possible direction, but what good is that if you can't actually apply it to more useful things? So the second step is preparation. Here we do what we can to get used to the motion that will be required to draw this line. Generally, this means ghosting through the motion, holding your pen above the page and going through the motion without the pen actually touching the surface. In doing this, we familiarize our muscles with what will be expected of them. Focus on the motion in the direction of the stroke as well. Instead of going back and forth, draw in that motion, pick your hand up, and then repeat. That way you're giving your arm a better sense of the specific motion it needs to learn. And you're essentially writing it to your kind of short-term muscle memory, if you want to call it that. And lastly, we've got execution. Here's where we make our mark, doing so with a confident motion. No hesitation, no worrying. Engage your whole arm and push through that motion. Here your focus is only on getting ink on the page. So once you feel you've ghosted enough to feel comfortable with that stroke, let the pen touch the page and repeat the same motion again, producing a single mark. Don't automatically go back over it or repeat yourself. One line, one mark. And so here's how I would do the whole process: ghosting, and then a mark. This one isn't perfect. There's a bit of curving here at the beginning, and it actually creates a very subtle S. But it's still smooth, and that's my focus. It's not perfectly accurate, but this is what we're aiming for. We prioritize the flow of the mark first, accuracy second. And this whole process is that it's like a production line. At every stage, you can think as though it's being handled by an entirely different person. Each one is only responsible for a very limited task, and they're not concerned with whether those before or after them are actually doing their jobs. So when you're executing your mark, you should not be thinking about whether or not you did enough planning or preparation. Whether you did or didn't is no longer relevant. The second your pen actually touches the page, any opportunity to avoid making a mistake has passed. You have to accept what happens and push through. This is generally where wobbling occurs. Students who apply the first 2 stages correctly can still second-guess themselves and hesitate when making their mark, resulting in wobbling. So you can sit here and, put your points down, ghost as much as you want, but if you don't physically make the choice, or mentally, I guess, make the choice of committing to that stroke, if you hesitate, you will end up with a wobbly line. And so committing is key. So this exercise will basically be to draw a bunch of straight lines, applying this ghosting method, across your entire page. I'll often just put down a bunch of random points and then connect them together. And I've got an example of how it looks when it's finished. Now, there are a few mistakes that students will find themselves making, so let's go over them fairly quickly. First, basically what I've already discussed, it's like a broken record at this point. If you wobble your lines, you are not executing your mark confidently. And you need to make sure that when your pen touches the page, your only responsibility is making a smooth, confident mark. And as I discussed before in the superimposed lines exercise, if you don't think you can make confident lines, just take a piece of paper and draw lines as quickly as you can, and you'll show yourself that when you don't give yourself the opportunity to hesitate, your lines come out smooth. Another issue that students run into is the tendency to have their strokes arc a little bit. So let's say they've got their 2 points. They might be trying to draw a straight line, and they may find that every time it arcs. And there's 2 possible reasons for this. One is just that maybe they're drawing from their wrist. If I try and draw a straight line here from my wrist with, my wrist is firmly locked in place, I can't help but curve that line. The elbow will also produce a bit of a curve, just not as much as this, but always make sure that you are executing these marks from your shoulder and engaging your whole arm, as we discussed in previous videos. The other reason, if you are definitely using your whole arm to execute these marks and your wrist is locked in one position, in one orientation, it's not able to pivot from here, then it may simply be that your brain kind of thinks incorrectly about what a straight line is. And so you may find yourself, when you tell it, I want to draw a straight line, it might just make a bit of a curve. And the way to kind of deal with that is to purposely curve your line in the other direction. And the hope here is that it will compensate, and with your brain wanting to naturally curve things in this direction, when you try and draw this line, the line should come out straighter. And you'll have to be very conscious about this initially, but over time, your brain will be rewired in terms of what it thinks to be a straight line, and that issue will go away. So this is the process that you're going to be using for every mark you draw throughout this course, this ghosting method where you plan, prepare, and execute. It can be applied to straight lines, curves, ellipses, anything. At its core, though, it comes down to a very simple concept, that you need to think before you draw, and make sure that the line you want to draw will actually contribute to your drawing in some way. People have this terrible tendency of just putting marks down and then deciding whether or not it was a good idea later. The ghosting method is all about plan first, think about what you're trying to do and what you're trying to contribute, and then see it through.
Apologies. So if you feel like at this point it's just like, oh yeah, he's just repeating himself so much, it's really important that the fundamentals are in place. So hearing it plenty of times, because by tomorrow you've already forgotten all this, let's be honest. Said there was a working exercise. I think we'll be playing this as we do the exercise, then we can watch her do it as well. So, okay, onto this video now.
Since the ghosting technique is going to be used for every single mark you draw throughout this course, one thing I want to make clear is that I do not by any means expect you to be able to employ this technique perfectly right from the get-go. Every exercise in this lesson is all about introducing you to concepts and making sure that you understand them. Being able to apply them is going to take a lot more practice and mileage. There are a lot of little mistakes that students make in this exercise, and they are entirely normal and expected, and they will go away with practice. So I'd like to break this exercise down into 3 levels of challenges, where we don't even concern ourselves with the challenges of higher levels until we've gotten comfortable tackling those of the lower ones. The first such level is simply getting a line to flow smoothly. Here you can see that this line is, it's pretty much straight, but it's not going through the intended points. Your accuracy is off, but your execution is solid. It's confident. And that's what we want to focus on for the first level. No wobbling, no stiffness, but your accuracy's trash. Whatever, it's fine. The second level is where you're able to keep your line straight and smooth and get it to pass through these endpoints. As you can see here, it's fairly close to passing through that endpoint, definitely closer than level 1, and it overshoots. So, at the starting point, we've got a pretty decent start, but we aren't able to stop right on a dime. One thing that can help with that is to lift your pen as you make the mark and as you finish. Most students will initially try and slow to a stop like this. And that slowing down isn't entirely responsive. So instead, making a point of lifting your pen as it ends will produce a more tapered end, which can make your lines look more lively. And it can also, with practice, of course, be a mark that will end more quickly and more responsively to what you need it to do. So on the point of making your lines more fluid, when you stay too long on an endpoint, or if you press too hard, you'll end up with ends that are pretty much just stopping at a very significant thickness. And this kind of uniformity can make your lines feel more dead. So being sure to draw with more confidence and controlling how the pen lifts off precisely where you want it to, of course, with practice, will get you much more fluid, lively lines in the long run. And the third level of this is simply that you can keep your lines straight and smooth, get pretty close to passing between your start point and your end point, and they don't overshoot or undershoot very much. So when you're dealing with level 1, these concerns of accuracy, if you are still wobbling that line, don't even worry about accuracy. Focus on getting a smooth stroke. When you're struggling to get your line to actually touch these start and end points, don't worry about making sure that they stop right at that point. Just get them to go through it. And then once you are comfortable with that, then you can start working on getting your lines to stop where they need to stop. I cannot stress this enough. Do not sit here and grind this exercise as part of the lesson 1 homework until you hit the 3rd level. Just being able to complete level 1 is totally fine for our purposes here. Your homework for this exercise is only meant to convey that you understand what you should be aiming for, not that you can apply it all perfectly. You will have ample opportunity to improve on this later, as all the exercises you complete in a given lesson will be added to your regular warm-up routine. Nothing here gets left behind. As you move on from this lesson, your warm-ups will still consist of doing quite a few ghosted lines, superimposed lines, ellipses, boxes, and so on, and with every new lesson you complete, you're just going to be adding more exercises to that pool that you have to pull from for your warm-ups. We talked about this, of course, in lesson 0, so if this is all new to you, you should definitely go back and refresh your memory of that lecture.
Alright, so remember to lift your pen at the end of every stroke. Very good. And then I suppose the 3 levels, I'll write them down so we can remember those later. Here, I'll put them in the chat as well. Alright, let's continue listening to Crispy.
You need to be to make that mark, rather than rushing in half-cocked. The levels of this exercise. Also worth thinking about is the fact that there are several levels of success with this exercise. Level 1, line is smooth and consistent without any visible wobbling, but doesn't quite pass through A or B due to following the right trajectory. It's a straight doesn't quite pass through A or B due to not following the right trajectory. It's a straight shot but misses the mark a bit. Level 2, line is straight, smooth and consistent without any wobbling and maintains the current trajectory. It does, however, either fall short or overshoot one or both points. Level 3, line is straight, smooth, consistent without any wobbling. It also starts right at one point and ends exactly at the other. Take it one level at a time. Don't worry too much about the goals for level 3 if you're not yet nailing level 1. Overshooting? Try this. A lot of students struggle with overshooting their lines, and as a result, they tend to hesitate more as they reach the endpoint, causing them to undershoot and waver slightly as they slow their pen to a stop. Here's an alternative. Try lifting your pen off the page the second you hit that end point. Lifting it up is a much more reliable action you can perform far more responsively, and it avoids the hesitation you get from slowing down. In general, overshooting isn't that big of a deal right now. You'll get better at it, and it's always better than hesitating. Still, this approach can solve two problems at once. Mistake, wobbly lines. If your lines wobble like this one, or show any kind of wavering, then there are two main possibilities as to what is happening. You're hesitating as you execute the line, rather than drawing with a confident motion. Finally committing to a mark can definitely be quite daunting, but it's integral that you get used to accepting that mistakes do happen. Things go wrong, you can prepare as much as possible, and you should, but the moment your pen touches the page, any opportunity to avoid a mistake has already passed. Now you must commit yourself, push through with confidence, and execute your line. It's also worth remembering we can still work with a line that's smooth and even, but there's not much that can be done with a wobbly one. You're drawing with your wrist rather than your shoulder, and have to reposition yourself as you draw due to the limited range of motion. These lines should absolutely be drawn from the shoulder, because they rely heavily on achieving a smooth, consistent flow. It could very well be both, so take a step back and analyse your approach before settling back in and trying again. Mistake, arcing lines. While this can be related to not drawing from the shoulder, and the smaller arc of motion forcing you into an arcing line, some people will find that they have a natural tendency to arc their lines slightly when attempting to draw one that is straight. One approach I've heard to correct this is to consciously arc your line slightly in the opposite direction. The expected result is that this conscious adjustment will compensate for the issue and will result in a straight line that does not arc in either direction. Over time and practice, your brain will associate this motion with a straight line, and eventually you won't have to be quite so conscious of it. Example homework. Basically, you just need to fill a page with straight lines using the ghosting method. How you do this is up to you. As shown below, I've filled the page with points and then drawn lines between them. Don't worry about letting them overlap or things getting cluttered, it's all perfectly fine. What's important is that you're putting the time into the ghosting method for each and every line you produce.
Wonderful. Alright, so with that, I suppose we will be doing the ghosting exercise. Let's just have a quick look at how this person is doing it so we're sure that we're
Have this warm up a little bit.
doing it in the right way.
Hurt either.
Right.
Shoulder. Bachelorette with her. Well, if you don't have printer paper,
So ghost the line until it becomes comfortable for you, and then make the confident stroke. Phew. Nice.
that's what I did, and I missed. No, steal the paper tray. It's the whole giant.
And rotate the paper so the line is the most comfortable as possible. Alright. I will have this running over on the side here. Sec. What's this window called? There we go. Why isn't it showing up? Oh well, I suppose you'll just get to watch me do it then. It doesn't seem to be wanting to be working right now, my OBS. So the lesson said 1 page. Yes. 1 page of ghosted lines. Here we go. So start out by making a bunch of random dots. And then begin connecting them. Remember to relax your shoulder so you aren't straining any muscles. Oh, I'm concentrating so hard I keep tensing up my shoulder. If you run out of dots, just make some more. Remember, it becomes a bit easier if you look at the dot you're drawing towards. Makes your line more accurate. Oh, your fine liner died. Mine did too. I forgot, I lost the cap to it, and so it dried out, so now I'm using this pen. It's a surprisingly good pen, actually. This thing is called B2P Gel. It's probably one of the best pens I've used. It's very like very thick, comfortable lines. I don't know how else to explain it. Yes, the course did recommend that you use printer paper rather than expensive art paper, simply because art paper eats all your ink. So pens run out very fast. Of course, I've never actually finished an entire pen. I always lose them before they run out, so I don't really know if that's such a big problem for me. Maybe if I drew on art paper, I could actually finish a pen. Notice if your lines are arcing in any direction. If they are, try to correct it by arcing them in the opposite direction. I've set a timer for 15 minutes, by the way, that's running, so still another few minutes to go. Relax the shoulder. Pokey asks, are you guys putting all your weight on your other elbow so you can lift your arm and draw from the shoulder? I'm doing that and I think it might be giving me bad posture. Yes, you want to adjust your seating or table height so that your elbow is at the same height as the table itself when you drop it and rest it comfortably. This is not just for drawing, this is for everything. If it's too high, you'll be tensing your muscles all the time. If it's too low, you'll also get a bad shoulder, I suppose. That was one thing that the physiotherapist taught me when I was in therapy for fixing my gaming wrist. If you're very short, then you can use some pillows. Not only will it make you a bit taller, but it will make you a lot more comfy what you're sitting on. Remember also to practice good back posture. If you're in doubt what that feels like, if you tighten the lower muscles of your stomach, the rest of your spine will align correctly. Another way is to tighten your butt cheeks. That'll also align your spine correctly. Also, the woman in the example video, I noticed she was dragging her hand along the paper. I think it's better if you don't do that. Don't rest your hand. Just hover your hand and wrist and elbow. And then, personally, like having your pen completely upright helps me a bit with that, because otherwise I'm like resting and then, oh yeah, this is comfortable. But I'm smearing all over the paper, and I think you just lose a lot of control if you're actually resting it on the hand, because then you gotta battle friction as well. Just a few more minutes to go. Baby asks if they should go slow when ghosting. No, you should put the same amount of confidence in it as you would a normal stroke. I like to keep ghosting until my pen consistently goes over the last dot. And once it consistently hits the dot, then I put my line down. Like so. That was a really satisfying line. Very straight and long. Also remember to lift your pen at the end of every stroke, rather than stopping the motion. I just noticed I hadn't been doing that, so... Remember, if your lines are wobbly, you want to focus on just making straight long lines. If your lines are straight and long, you want to focus on going through the two dots. Don't worry about overshooting. And if you're consistently hitting the dots, then try practicing starting and stopping your line at the dots, which are the 3 levels. My paper is getting a bit too filled, so I'll start a new one. Only a few more minutes to go. Oh, actually just half a minute. Nice. Alright, that was 15 minutes of ghosting. Good job, everyone. Since that took an entire hour to get through, I suppose we will be doing the next exercise in the next tomorrow. And we'll just be hopping over to free drawing now. Good job, everyone. You did wonderfully. If you want to upload your lines to the server, I'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. Another way to very easily have a straight back without really needing to think about it is to sit in the meditative half lotus or Burmese pose, or there's a lot of different variations. Whatever feels good for you. Personally, Oh, sorry, should I mute myself? Or do you enjoy the ASMR? couple more minutes to finish up. So, get your stuff uploaded. Juno says they are very anxious when they make small strokes. Oh. Someone else points out that you should do small details with your wrist, not from your shoulder. I'm pretty sure that a couple lessons ago, they told us that even small details should be done from the wrist or from the shoulder while you're doing this course, just because it's gonna feel so unnatural at first. And so you want to get used to that even with small details. I find that I do small details myself from the shoulder. I suppose I do lose a bit of accuracy, but I think it's a good practice. There we go. Now my stuff is uploaded. Alright, let's take a look at what everyone did. From where did we start? Here we got all the lines. Very neat. I'll try to do some longer lines as well, I think. I notice all of them are kind of the same short length on some of these. Try doing some that go across the entire page as well. Aw, we got cute little Amogus with us. Get out of my head. The IKEA chair. Classy. And a nice flower. This cute little figure. Oh, isn't she adorable? Oh, this guy is driving to work. He's working at the Taj Mahal. We got a bean farmer over on the left side. Some forest, some factory. Very cool. I'm looking forward to when we because I think after we're done with Drawbox, we'll go on to we'll find another course and follow it, if you guys are up for that. Of course. And then we might focus on learning to draw trees and stuff like that. If you stick with me, we're gonna become master drawers. Don't you worry. Ooh, this is really cool. Honey, is that you? Aw, oh, my heart. Aw. Married to a blind person. Aw, it's so wholesome. Got some psychedelics going on here. The air whale. Oh no, the chicken. Oh no, you're eating his son. Oh no. Sombrero UFO heating up the coffee. Alright, cool, yeah. Ooh, that is one creepy clown. I like this little robot guy about to pop the balloon. Oh, this is very neat. Well, that's quite some extreme perspective you got going on up here on the houses. Very good. I like how the hill line becomes the falling lines of this guy. Very cool. Got the bucket. That almost feels like a reference to Girl Chan in Paradise when they need to put out that fire guy. Oh, it's such a hilarious part. Ooh, sea monster eating the Krabby Patty. Even monsters need to eat. Nice coral. Well, that's a really good superhero drawing. Got the foreshortened arm. We'll probably make the fingers a bit longer. Well, actually I'd make his palm smaller, not the fingers longer. Because you notice that so from the middle tip of the middle finger to where your hand connects to the wrist is gonna be the same size as your face. If you put your hand up to your face, you're gonna notice it's exactly the same size, pretty much. So that's a good rule of thumb to remember. Drawing hands for faces. Then we got Jandro with the strong man on the Diglett, yes. Big TP mountain monsters and a little kid buying ice cream. Very cute. Juno. Oh, they're playing like tennis match. Oh, that's a good smear frame. Well done. And Jigglypuff about to take the bat. Oh, it's a baseball game. My bad. And here's one I drew of this lizard feeding its babies, and we got some people in the background looking on, spectating. And we got a guy who has a very wholesome relationship with this monster thingy. A couple people climbing up on the wall to see them. Ooh. Nice falling. Ah. It almost looked like someone is grabbing her shirt. You could draw a hand of someone like trying to save her. Would add a nice story to it. Very cool. Here's another drawing I did of one monster is hoarding all the gold and the other one is angry. Aw, cute little chibi things. Yeah. Ooh, damn, that is a thick ghost. Oof. Nice. On the jealous boyfriend ghost over here, seeing these two together. Nice eye. Very cool, Matthew. Then we got Kali doing some figure drawing. Very neat. Remember not to be chicken scratching. It's an important thing to remember. One line does the job. You don't need 16 of the same line. That's at least part of what we're practicing in this course. Is not being confident with every line. Very cool though. Very good proportions. Got a prison in the background and then a guy trying to fend off a worm coming out of the floor's mouth. Guy angry over at the forest. Very nice vibey. Well, I suppose that's it for today. I hope you had a very wonderful time. I know I did. If you haven't noticed, I bought a Minecraft server that we can play on. I've already built a couple of things at spawn, but honestly, you can just do whatever you want with the server. But enough of plugging. Have a wonderful evening or day wherever you are, and I will see you tomorrow. Good job, everyone.